This is HOA Control Freaks. And yes, this is crazy. I work in IT support, and I moved to Willowbrook Estates in Austin, Texas, because I wanted a quiet neighborhood and a fresh start. That dream lasted exactly 3 weeks. Nancy Davis, parking committee chair for the Willowbrook Estates HOA, was blocking my driveway at 6:45 in the morning, phone raised, snapping photos of my silver Honda Accord like she had caught me running a meth lab. "Your vehicle is a prohibited commercial vehicle," she shouted, "and the tow truck is already on the way." I was still holding my coffee mug, barely awake, staring at this woman in a mustard yellow blazer who had decided my completely normal sedan was somehow a commercial threat to property values. The tow truck rounded the corner before I could even ask what she was talking about, air brakes hissing as it backed into my driveway. Nancy smiled like she had won something. "We protect property values," she said, tapping her laminated parking map with one manicured fingernail. I could see highlighted zones on the map, color-coded sections that supposedly explained why my personal vehicle was suddenly illegal. "This is my personal car," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "I drive it to work every single day. It has never been used for business." She did not even look up from her clipboard. "That is confidential," she said, like she was guarding state secrets instead of a neighborhood parking policy. The tow truck driver was already hooking up the winch cable, metal clanking against my rear axle, and I realized this was actually happening. I had moved to Willowbrook Estates because the online photos showed tree-lined streets and a community pool, because the gate made it feel safe, because I thought a homeowners association meant organization and fairness. What I did not know was that this gated community treated towing like a profit machine, that Nancy Davis called tow trucks the way other people called for pizza delivery, that selective enforcement was not a bug, but the entire system. My reputation in a neighborhood that gossips nonstop was about to tank before I had even learned my neighbors' names. The stakes were immediate and humiliating. I could already picture the next door posts, the whispers at the mailboxes, the sidelong glances every time I walked to my car. Nancy held up the laminated map again, pointing to a section labeled guest parking. "Your vehicle was parked in a resident spot overnight, which violates Section 12 of the parking addendum for commercial vehicles. My car was in my own driveway. I was not in guest parking. I was not on the street. I was 10 feet from my front door, on the concrete slab that came with my deed." She waved the map like it was a weapon. "The rules are clear," she said. "Prohibited commercial vehicles include any vehicle used in the course of employment that displays signage, decals, or equipment." My Accord had none of those things. It had a company parking sticker on the inside windshield, the kind every office building issues, but no external signage, no logos, no equipment racks. The tow truck driver finished securing the cable and glanced at me with something close to sympathy. "You got paperwork for this?" he asked Nancy. She handed him a yellow carbon copy form and he shrugged and climbed back into the cab. "My shift starts in an hour," I said. Louder now, and my car is gone. "How am I supposed to get to work?" Nancy tucked her clipboard under one arm. "You should have thought of that before you violated the parking policy." The truck pulled forward, lifting my rear wheels off the pavement, and I stood there in my driveway with cold coffee and no car, watching my Honda disappear around the corner. I called the tow yard from my kitchen 10 minutes later, pacing between the sink and the fridge. The woman on the phone recited fees like she was reading a grocery list. "Storage is $75 per day, retrieval is $220, administrative processing is $50, and you need to pay the HOA fine before we release the vehicle." "What HOA fine?" I asked. She sighed. "Whatever your association charged for the violation. You will need to contact them." I asked how much the total was. She put me on hold, came back and said $540 plus whatever your HOA says you owe. I did not have $540 sitting around for a random Tuesday morning towing ambush. I checked my email while I was still on the phone with the tow yard, and there it was. A certified letter scan from the Willowbrook Estates Management Company, sent at 6:30 a.m., demanding I pay tow fees and fines immediately. The email had an attached PDF with Nancy's signature at the bottom, right next to the HOA logo. The letter claimed my vehicle was in violation of Section 12.4, prohibited commercial use, and that I owed $200 in fines plus all towing and storage costs. Failure to pay within 72 hours would result in a lien on my property. I read that line twice. A lien. For parking my own car in my own driveway. I had moved here 3 weeks ago. I had attended exactly 0 HOA meetings. I had never received a parking pass, a welcome packet, or any kind of orientation about commercial vehicle rules. The rules they were citing did not even make sense. I pulled up the HOA website on my laptop and found the parking addendum buried in a document library. Section 12.4 said that commercial vehicles were defined as any vehicle displaying external signage, decals, or equipment used in the course of business. It also said that any vehicle in violation must receive a written warning notice posted on the windshield at least 72 hours before towing. I read that part 3 times. 72 hours. Written warning. Posted on the windshield. I had received no written warning. I had received no notice on my windshield. I had woken up to Nancy in my driveway with a tow truck already in motion, and now I was supposed to pay hundreds of dollars for a rule they had not even followed. I took a screenshot of Section 12.4, saved the PDF, and started looking for a lawyer. Then I stopped, because I remembered something. The gate. Willowbrook Estates had a security gate with cameras. Every car that entered or exited was recorded, time-stamped, logged. If Nancy had come to my driveway to post a notice 72 hours ago, the gate footage would show it. If she had not, the footage would prove she skipped her own required step. I called the management office and got a receptionist who sounded like she had heard this exact complaint a dozen times that week. "I need to request gate camera footage," I said. She put me on hold for 4 minutes, then transferred me to someone named Greg in compliance. Greg listened to my story with the patience of a man who had stopped caring years ago. "You will need to submit a formal records request," he said. "That takes 5 to 7 business days." "I do not have 7 business days," I said. "They are threatening a lien in 72 hours. He sighed. "You can attend the next board meeting and request an expedited review." "When is the next board meeting?" I asked. "Thursday night." Thursday was 2 days away. I still did not have my car. I still could not get to work. I called my boss and explained the situation, and he let me work from home for the rest of the week, but I could hear the frustration in his voice. "This is the 2nd time this month," he said. "I know," I said. It would not happen again. Except, I had no idea if that was true, because I was living in a neighborhood where the parking committee chair could apparently tow your car on a whim and stick you with fees that would take weeks to dispute. I spent the rest of Tuesday documenting everything. I printed the parking addendum. I highlighted Section 12.4. I took photos of my car from the week before, showing no external signage, no decals, nothing that would classify it as commercial. I pulled my vehicle registration, my insurance card, my employment contract, anything that proved the Accord was a personal vehicle. Then I went outside and knocked on the door of my next-door neighbor, a guy named Marcus who had given me a friendly wave when I moved in. Marcus opened the door in gym shorts and a faded Longhorns shirt, holding a protein shake. "Yeah," he said, "I saw the whole thing this morning. Nancy does this to someone every other week." He invited me in, and I sat on his couch while he pulled out his phone. "I have been documenting her for 6 months," he said, scrolling through a photo gallery. "She towed my buddy for parking his truck in his own driveway. She booted another guy for having his boat trailer visible from the street. She makes up violations and then acts like she is protecting the neighborhood." He showed me a photo of a truck with a boot on the front tire, another photo of Nancy standing next to it with her clipboard, smiling. Marcus was tired of Nancy, and he had documented everything. He had photos, timestamps, next-door screenshots, emails. "Why have you not gone to the board?" I asked. He laughed. "Half the board is scared of her and the other half does not care. But you might have a shot," he said. "If you can prove she skipped the 72-hour notice, that is a direct violation of the addendum. They would have to dismiss it." He leaned forward, "And if you can get the gate footage, you will have her dead to rights." I asked if he would come to the board meeting with me. He nodded. "Absolutely." I spent Wednesday preparing for the hearing. I made copies of everything: the parking addendum, my vehicle docs, the photos, the certified letter. I put it all in a binder, tabbed by date, because I wanted to walk in looking like I had done my homework. I also sent an email to Greg in compliance, formally requesting the gate footage for the 72 hours before my car was towed. He replied with a 2-sentence acknowledgement, "Your request has been received and will be reviewed." No timeline, no confirmation, nothing useful. Wednesday night, I got another email. This one was from an attorney, CCing Nancy Davis and the Willowbrook Estates Board. The subject line was demand for payment and compliance. The email said I was required to pay all outstanding fines and fees before I could appeal the violation, and that failure to pay within 48 hours would result in additional penalties and a lien filing. I read it twice, feeling my blood pressure spike. They were trying to force me to pay first, appeal later, which meant even if I won, I would be out hundreds of dollars for weeks waiting for a refund. I replied to the attorney, CCing the board and Nancy. I wrote that I was exercising my right to appeal under the HOA bylaws, that I had evidence the 72-hour notice requirement was not met, and that I would be presenting my case at the Thursday board meeting. I kept it professional, cited Section 12.4, and attached the relevant pages of the parking addendum. Then I hit send and waited. The attorney replied an hour later with a new demand letter, this time adding legal fees to the total and threatening a lien within 48 hours. The number had jumped from $740 to $1,200. Thursday morning, I called the tow yard again. My car had been sitting there for 3 days, racking up $75 per day in storage fees. The total was now over $800. I asked if I could at least get my work laptop out of the trunk. The yard manager said no. Vehicle is impounded pending HOA clearance, he said. Nothing gets released until we get payment authorization. I asked what happened if I could not pay. He paused. Then we auction it after 30 days. I hung up and stared at the wall, trying not to spiral. The board meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. at the management office, a low brick building near the front gate. I showed up at 6:50 with my binder, my laptop, and Marcus. The meeting room was a narrow conference space with a folding table at the front and about 20 plastic chairs in rows. Nancy was already there, sitting in the front row, laminated parking map on her lap. She saw me and smiled, the kind of smile that does not reach the eyes. I took a seat in the back. Marcus sat next to me and whispered, "Stay calm, let them talk first, then bury them with facts." The board filed in at 5 people, all middle-aged, all looking like they would rather be anywhere else. The president, a man named Bill with reading glasses on a chain, called the meeting to order and ran through old business for 15 minutes. Then he looked at his agenda. Next item, parking violation appeal, Lot 214. That was me. I stood up, binder in hand, and walked to the front. Nancy was already standing, clipboard ready. Bill nodded at Nancy. "Miss Davis, you want to present the violation first?" Nancy stepped forward, all confidence. On the morning of the 16th, I observed a prohibited commercial vehicle parked in the driveway of Lot 214. The vehicle displayed internal signage consistent with business use and was in violation of Section 12.4 of the parking addendum. I issued a towing order in accordance with HOA policy. She held up a photo of my car, zoomed in on the windshield where my office parking sticker was barely visible. "This sticker," she said, "constitutes commercial signage." I waited for her to finish. Then I opened my binder and pulled out the parking addendum. Section 12.4, I said, defines commercial vehicles as those displaying external signage, decals, or equipment. My vehicle has no external signage. The sticker Miss Davis is referencing is an internal parking permit for my office building, which is not visible from outside the vehicle and does not meet the definition of external signage. I handed a copy of the addendum to Bill. He read it, frowned, and looked at Nancy. "Is that accurate?" Nancy did not miss a beat. The rule is intended to prevent commercial activity in residential areas. The spirit of the rule applies here. I shook my head. The rule also requires a 72-hour written notice before towing. I received no notice. I was not given an opportunity to correct the alleged violation. Nancy's smile tightened. Notices are posted at the discretion of the parking committee when immediate action is required for safety. I pulled out another page from my binder. The addendum does not include an exception for immediate action. It clearly states that all towing must be preceded by a 72-hour notice period unless the vehicle is blocking emergency access. My car was in my own driveway. It was not blocking anything. Bill looked uncomfortable. Do we have documentation of the notice being posted? He asked Nancy. She hesitated just for a second. That is confidential. The room went quiet. I saw one of the other board members, a woman in her 50s, exchange a glance with Bill. Confidential, Bill repeated slowly. Miss Davis, if you issued a notice, we need to see proof of that notice. Otherwise, this violation does not meet the procedural requirements. Nancy straightened. The parking committee operates independently under delegated authority. Our records are maintained separately. I saw my opening. I requested gate camera footage for the 72 hours before the tow, I said. If Miss Davis posted a notice, the footage will show her entering the community and accessing my driveway. If she did not, the footage will confirm that no notice was given. I looked at Bill. I submitted a formal records request on Wednesday. Has that footage been pulled? Bill shuffled his papers. I do not have that information, he said. We will need to follow up with compliance. Nancy stood up, pointing at me. This is a stalling tactic. He is trying to avoid paying legitimate fees by exploiting a technicality. I stayed calm. It is not a technicality. It is the rule. Your rule. If the HOA is not going to follow its own parking policy, then the policy is meaningless. Marcus, sitting in the back, raised his phone. I have been documenting similar violations for 6 months, he called out. Nancy has towed multiple residents without posting notices. If you want, I can share timestamps and photos right now. Bill held up a hand. Let us keep this focused on the current case. He looked at Nancy, then at me. I am going to recommend we table this until we can review the gate footage. If no notice was posted, the violation will be dismissed and fees will be refunded. If a notice was posted, we will reconvene. Nancy's face went red. That sets a dangerous precedent, she said. We protect property values by enforcing rules consistently. Bill cut her off. And we protect ourselves legally by following our own procedures. Meeting adjourned pending footage review. I walked out of that meeting feeling like I had won a round, but not the fight. Nancy caught up with me in the parking lot, her heels clicking on the asphalt. You think you are clever, she said. You think you can embarrass me in front of the board. I turned to face her. I am not trying to embarrass you. I just want my car back and I want you to follow the rules. She stepped closer, voice dropping. I warned you. You were making this worse for yourself. I had the gate footage. And she laughed at me. Literally laughed. Go ahead, she said. Waste your time. You will find nothing. I went home and emailed Greg in compliance again, this time CCing Bill and the entire board. I need the gate footage, I wrote. This is now a formal appeal matter, and the board has requested it. Greg replied Friday morning, footage has been pulled and will be available for review at the continued hearing. The continued hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday, another week away. Another week of my car sitting in impound, another week of storage fees piling up. I called the tow yard Friday afternoon and explained the situation. The yard manager was slightly more sympathetic this time. Look, he said, if the HOA dismisses the violation, we will refund the fees minus the first day of storage. But you are still on the hook until we get written clearance from them. I asked how much I owed now. $975. I closed my eyes and thanked him, then hung up. Marcus texted me that weekend. Nancy is panicking. She has been calling board members trying to get the footage request blocked. One of the board members told me she claimed the cameras were broken that week. I texted back, were they? Marcus replied, no, I checked with the gate attendant. Cameras were working fine. She is lying. I felt a grim satisfaction. If Nancy was lying about the cameras, it meant she knew the footage would not show a notice being posted. It meant she had skipped the 72-hour rule and hoped no one would call her on it. Monday morning, I got another email from the attorney. This one was blunt. Pay all outstanding fees within 48 hours or a lien will be filed against your property. The lien filing would go on my credit report, tank my mortgage rate if I ever tried to refinance, and cost me even more in legal fees to remove. I forwarded the email to Bill and wrote, is this how the HOA handles procedural disputes now? Threatening liens before the appeal process is complete? Bill did not reply. Tuesday, I went to the management office in person. I asked to see Greg. He met me in the lobby looking annoyed. The footage is ready, he said. You can review it at the hearing Thursday. I want to see it now, I said. He shook his head. Board decision. It gets presented at the hearing, not before. I could feel my frustration boiling over, but I kept my voice level. If that footage shows no notice was posted, this entire violation is invalid and I should not be paying storage fees for another 3 days. Greg shrugged. Take it up with the board. I left the office and sat in Marcus's truck, because I still did not have my car. Marcus had offered to drive me around for errands, and he was parked outside waiting. He saw my face and knew. They are stalling, he said. Nancy is trying to run out the clock so you give up and pay. I will not, I said. He grinned. Good, because I got something for you. He handed me a thumb drive. What is this? I asked. He leaned back. I made friends with the gate attendant. He pulled the footage himself, off the record. It is all on there. Every entry and exit for the week before your tow. I stared at the thumb drive. Are you serious? Marcus nodded. Dead serious. Nancy did not come to your driveway 72 hours before the tow. She did not come at all until the morning she called the truck. No notice, no warning, nothing. It is all time-stamped. I felt a surge of relief and anger mixed together. This is it, I said. This is the trump card. Marcus smiled. Now you just have to play it right. Wednesday night, I could not sleep. I kept playing the hearing in my head, imagining how Nancy would react when the footage went up on the screen, imagining the board's faces when they realized she had lied. I also kept thinking about the money. Even if I won, I had lost a week of work flexibility, paid for ride shares, stressed about my credit, all because one person decided to flex her authority without following the rules. The system was broken, and winning one appeal was not going to fix it. But it was a start. Thursday evening, I arrived at the management office at 6:30, half an hour early. Marcus was already there, thumb drive in hand. We sat in the back row and watched the room fill up. Nancy walked in at 6:55, laminated map under her arm, and took her seat in the front. She looked confident. Too confident. The board filed in, Bill at the head of the table, and called the meeting to order. Continued hearing, parking violation appeal, lot 214, he said. Mr. Davis, you are up first. I stood and walked to the front, laptop bag over my shoulder. I have new evidence, I said. With the board's permission, I would like to present gate camera footage for the 72 hours before my vehicle was towed. Bill looked surprised. I thought compliance was providing that footage. I have an independent copy, I said, holding up the thumb drive. It shows every entry and exit at the front gate, time-stamped and logged. Bill glanced at the other board members, then nodded. Go ahead. I plugged the thumb drive into my laptop and connected it to the room's projector. The screen lit up with a simple video file directory. I opened the file for the 72-hour window and let it play at double speed, the timestamp visible in the corner. Gate entries, gate exits, cars coming and going, all logged. Nancy's vehicle, a white Lexus SUV with a vanity plate, did not appear once in my driveway area during that window. The only time her vehicle showed up was the morning of the tow, timestamp 6:42 a.m., entering the community and heading straight to my street. The room was silent. I paused the video and zoomed in on the timestamp. Section 12.4 requires a written notice posted on the vehicle at least 72 hours before towing, I said. This footage shows that Miss Davis did not enter the community to post any notice during that time period. The first and only time she accessed my street was the morning she called the tow truck. I looked at Nancy. No notice was posted. The procedural requirement was not met. This violation is invalid. Nancy stood up, face flushed. That footage does not prove anything, she said. I could have posted the notice on foot. I could have walked from another entrance. I clicked to the next file. This is footage from the pedestrian gate, I said. Same 72-hour window, no entries under your resident code. I clicked to another file. This is the service entrance log. No entries. You did not post a notice, Miss Davis. You skipped the required step, and you know it. Bill leaned back in his chair, removing his glasses. Miss Davis, do you have any documentation that a notice was posted? Nancy opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. The parking committee maintains its own records. Those records are not subject to review. Bill shook his head. If those records exist, we need to see them. If they do not exist, then the notice was not posted and this violation is dismissed. Nancy looked around the room, realizing she had lost. "We protect property values," she said, voice rising. "That is my job. I protect this community from people who think the rules do not apply to them." I stayed calm. "The rules do apply," I said, "to everyone, including you. That is the whole point." One of the other board members, the woman in her 50s, spoke up. "I move that we dismiss the violation and refund all towing and storage fees." Another board member seconded. Bill called for a vote. It was unanimous. "Violation dismissed," he said. "Fees refunded in full. Ms. Davis, we will be reviewing parking committee procedures to ensure compliance going forward." Nancy grabbed her laminated map and walked out without another word. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more HOA drama. The board meeting ended 10 minutes later. Marcus and I walked out into the parking lot, and I felt like I could finally breathe. "You crushed it," Marcus said, clapping me on the shoulder. I nodded, still processing. It felt good. It felt like I had taken control of something that had been spiraling. But I also knew this was not over. Nancy was still on the parking committee. The HOA was still a gated community where towing was a profit machine. One win did not change the system. Friday morning, I got an email from the management office. Violation dismissed. Fees refunded. Vehicle release authorized. I forwarded it to the tow yard, and they confirmed I could pick up my car that afternoon. No fees, no charges, everything cleared. I took a rideshare to the yard, signed the release paperwork, and got my keys back. My Honda was dusty and had a faint oil stain on the rear bumper from the winch, but it started on the first try. I drove home, windows down, feeling the Texas heat and not even caring. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a small yellow envelope tucked under my doormat. I picked it up, already knowing what it was. Inside was a handwritten note on Willowbrook Estates HOA stationery. It said, "You may have won this time, but we are watching." It was not signed, but I recognized the handwriting from the certified letter. Nancy. I took a photo of the note, saved it to my evidence folder, and tossed the envelope in the recycling. Let her watch. I had documentation, I had witnesses, and I had already proven I was not going to roll over. Marcus texted me that weekend. "The board is talking about new parking committee oversight. Sounds like Nancy might not have final say anymore." I texted back, "Good, maybe this place can be normal now." He sent a laughing emoji. "Do not hold your breath." But you made a dent. That counts. Monday morning, I went back to work in person for the first time in over a week. My boss asked how the car situation turned out, and I gave him the short version. "Sounds like a nightmare," he said. "Yeah," I replied. "But it is handled." I did not mention the note, the lien threats, the attorney emails, or the 8 days of chaos. I just focused on my support tickets and tried to get back to normal. That afternoon, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. It was Greg from compliance. "Hey," he said, "just wanted to let you know the board voted to require written documentation for all parking violations going forward. No more towing without a paper trail." I felt a small surge of satisfaction. "That is good," I said. He paused. "Yeah. Also, Nancy Davis resigned from the parking committee this morning, effective immediately." I sat back in my chair, processing that. "She resigned?" Greg sighed. "She said the board was undermining her authority and she could not do her job effectively. Translation, she knew she was about to get audited and decided to bail." I thanked him and hung up, then texted Marcus. He replied immediately. "Heard the news. Best thing that could have happened. Drinks on me this weekend." I smiled. Maybe Willowbrook Estates was going to be livable after all. The next HOA board meeting was 2 weeks later, and I actually attended as a regular resident, not someone appealing a violation. They introduced new parking enforcement procedures, written notices required, 72-hour minimum, photo documentation, appeal rights posted on the website. Bill acknowledged that the previous system had gaps and thanked residents for their patience during the transition. No one mentioned Nancy by name, but everyone knew what he was talking about. After the meeting, a few neighbors came up to me and thanked me for pushing back. One guy said Nancy had threatened to boot his truck 3 times in the last year. Always for vague reasons. always with a tow truck on speed dial. Another woman said she had paid over $1,000 in fines rather than fight it, because she did not know the rules allowed appeals. I realized how many people had just absorbed the abuse because they thought they had no choice. Marcus and I grabbed tacos that weekend, and he showed me the Nextdoor thread about Nancy's resignation. It had over 100 comments, most of them relief and a few defending her as someone who cared about property values. One comment stood out. She kept this neighborhood safe from commercial creep, wrote someone with a fake profile picture. Without her, we will turn into a trailer park. I showed it to Marcus and he rolled his eyes. That is her burner account, he said. She has like 3 of them. I laughed. Of course she does. A month later, the parking situation in Willowbrook Estates had stabilized. No more random tows, no more boots appearing overnight. The new parking committee chair was a retired teacher named Linda who actually read the rules and answered emails. She sent out a community-wide survey asking what residents wanted from parking enforcement, and the top answer was consistency and transparency. Imagine that. I still saw Nancy around the neighborhood occasionally. She would drive past in her white Lexus, windows up, not making eye contact. Once I was checking my mail and she pulled up to the mailbox cluster at the same time. We stood there in silence, both grabbing our mail, and then she got back in her car and left without a word. It was awkward, but I did not care. She had tried to bully me into paying for a violation she invented, and I had called her bluff with evidence she thought did not exist. The refund check from the tow yard arrived 6 weeks after the hearing. $975, exactly what I had been quoted. I deposited it and felt the knot in my chest I had been carrying finally loosen. It was not just about the money. It was about proving that the system could be challenged, that the rules applied to everyone, that you did not have to just roll over when someone with a clipboard decided to make your life hell. Marcus told me the board was talking about term limits for committee chairs, better training, and regular audits. Small changes, but real ones. The kind of changes that happen when someone actually fights back and wins. I did not think of myself as some kind of neighborhood hero. I just wanted my car back and I wanted to be treated fairly. But apparently, that was enough to shift the culture. At least a little. 3 months in, I got a message from a resident in a different section of Willowbrook. She had been hit with a violation for having a work van in her driveway, and she wanted to know how I had handled my case. I sent her copies of the parking addendum, the gate footage process, and a step-by-step outline of how to request a hearing. 2 weeks later, she texted me that her violation had been dismissed. The new committee chair had reviewed the case, confirmed no notice was posted, and cleared the fees. It felt good to know the precedent was holding. I also started going to the monthly board meetings, not because I enjoyed them, but because I wanted to make sure the new procedures stuck. It was boring as hell, sitting through budget reports and landscaping discussions, but it mattered. Accountability only works if people show up. Marcus came to a few meetings with me, and we became the unofficial parking policy watchdogs. Anytime someone proposed a new enforcement rule, we asked about notice requirements, appeal rights, and documentation standards. The board started running things past us before voting, which was surreal but effective. Nancy moved out of Willowbrook Estates 4 months after the hearing. I heard about it through the neighborhood grapevine. Apparently, she sold her house and relocated to a different HOA across town, one where she could start fresh without the baggage of the parking committee scandal. Part of me felt bad for her. She genuinely believed she was protecting property values, that strict enforcement kept the neighborhood desirable. But her methods were authoritarian and selective, and she had no patience for anyone who questioned her. In the end, that was her downfall. The day she moved, I saw the moving truck in her driveway. I thought about walking over and saying something, maybe offering a neutral goodbye, but I decided against it. There was nothing to say. She had made her choices, I had made mine, and we had both lived with the consequences. I watched the truck pull away, and then I went inside and got back to my life. Living in Willowbrook Estates is not perfect. The HOA still sends out petty violation notices for trash cans left out too long, or holiday lights up past January. But the parking enforcement is fair now, and that makes a huge difference. I can park my car in my own driveway without wondering if it will be there in the morning. I can go to work without worrying about surprise fees or lien threats. It is a small thing, but it matters. Marcus and I still grab tacos every few weeks, and we still joke about the gate footage and the look on Nancy's face when the timestamp came up on the screen. That moment when the room went quiet and everyone realized she had lied, that was the turning point. Not just for my case, but for the whole community. It proved that documentation wins, that rules are only as good as the people enforcing them, and that sometimes you have to stand up and fight, even when it feels exhausting. I am glad I did. I am glad I did not just pay the fees and move on. I am glad I asked questions, gathered evidence, and refused to accept a system that punished people for following the rules. And I am glad the neighborhood is better for it, even in a small way. Because that is how change happens. One appeal, one hearing, one timestamp at a time. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.